Okay, we are back, and as promised, I'm going to show you how to attach a quilt as you go using a two-piece method that is my favorite. I know there's a lot of different ways out there, but whatever you find to work best for you is the way you should go. So what I have done is I have finished templating my block. I have got it all cut to size. And what I'm going to do is I am going to take two strips of fabric. The first strip of fabric being 1 inch wide. And this is going to be the part that shows on the top of the quilt block. So it is going to be, well, let me get that under there. I'm going to try anyway. Let's see what we can do. There we go. It is going to be this joining strip right here. And then I've taken a piece that was 1 3/4 inches wide, and I folded it wrong sides together lengthwise, and I pressed it. And that is going to be the back piece of the back joining strip. Okay. So what I've done here is I want to make sure that I'm doing things consistently. I have trimmed my blocks to 16.5 inches. I have also trimmed my strips to 16.5 inches. And why is this important? It is important because if, like borders, you just sew it on and then cut it to length, the length may not be correct. And in borders, it's especially difficult, and that's why we end up getting all of those wavy, wonky borders if we don't size up the border and the quilt. And that's a whole lesson in and of itself. But right now, today, we're going to worry about these joining strips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the front joining strips on the front of the block. I'm going to put the back joining strip, which is the 1 3/4 folded in half, and I'm going to put that on the back of my block. I'm just going to quickly pin that together. And now I'm going to come to the bottom of the block. I think maybe if I move you out, it'll be easier for you to see. I can change it back when we go to stitch. And I'm going to attach the bottom of the block. So I've got the top and the bottom of the block attached. Now, if everything remains equal, these should be the same size. So I'm going to just make sure that I've got everything lined up, which means I've got all of my raw edges lined up here. And I will be honest with you, I think using clips is a little better option, but my clips are actually on the other side of the room. And things are looking really good. So I'm just going to put a few pins in here just to make sure everything stays lined up. And with these, you'll want some heavier pins. You don't want those real light, flexible pins because they are not going to hold very well. Now, I do like to use a leader. And what that is it's just a scrap of fabric. I use a scrap of cork. And I'm going to start my seam with that. I've got a walking foot on. I've got a normal stitch length on my machine, and what I'm going to do is I am going to stitch 1/4 inch from the edge. So let's go ahead and stitch that on. And I'm going to take my pins out as I go. And having the grid glider on is really nice because I have this 1/4 inch mark that comes all the way down. Once you get your piece to the needle, you're too late if you don't have it set at 1/4 inch. What's going to happen is you can't then change it that quickly. I have this poking out just a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to keep everything nice and straight. I like the walking foot, or if you have an integrated feet on your machine, That works well also because with these thick layers, it keeps the top and the bottom feeding through the machine at the same rate, which is really important. I know many of us have noticed on our regular feet, with our regular foot on, a lot of times that top fabric will end up being a little longer when you've gotten through your seam. With a walking foot or an integrated foot, that will not happen. So I'm going to go all the way ahead here. I'm going to cut off my leader from the top because I can't find my other one. Surprise. Okay, again, keeping a very straight 1/4 inch seam allowance here. Then I'm going to put my leader back in. And now we're going to leave our needle down and take this off. So what we've got, our right side, we have the 1 inch joining piece. The back side, we have our 1 1/4 inch, and that has been folded. All of the wrong edges are together here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to press the top joining strip down. So I will place you on pause while I go and do. Okay, so I have pressed just the top, not the bottom, not the back side, just the top side open. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to take and put my next block, and I'm going to put it right side down on top of the block that I've just added the joining strip to, and I am going to grab my clips. This is a whole lot easier if you use clips. So just like I did when I attached the 2 strips to the block, I am going to clip the bottom in place, and we want this edge and we want the side edge. What we're looking for is for this edge and this edge to match up. Now I'm going to go to the top of the block, and again I am going to clip that so that the raw edges all meet. Now remember, you have trimmed your block to the correct size. When you trim your block to the correct size and you've trimmed your joining strips to the correct size, everything should match up perfectly. If it doesn't, what we're going to do is we're going to make one fit the other. In other words, if our top is a little too large, we're going to ease that into the joining strip. If the joining strip is just a little too large, we're going to ease that into the top block there that we've got on here. Reason being is we want everything to stay as square as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and just put one more clip on here. And I don't know if you are aware that these clips have kind of a right side and a wrong side. If you'll notice, this side is straight and it should lay on the bed of your machine. If you try to have this side on the bed of your machine, you'll notice how unstable it will be. So we're going to just go ahead and put that one in there. I'm going to go ahead and put my foot down now. I have my leader strip in there. And I'm going to take this off. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I am going to stitch this in at 1/4 of an inch as well. You can do this from either side. Stop as often as you need to. Adjust everything because you want to keep that seam at 1/4 of an inch. You want to make sure everything is lined up, which it looks really good here. Okay, let's keep on going. Gonna keep everything lined up here till we get to the very end. Want to make sure that everything is lined up, which it is. Very nice. We definitely need to take those clips off before we stitch to them or over them. Obviously, you cannot stitch over those clips. Okay, we've got one more to go. I'm going to get my leader here because, as I said, I don't know what happened to my second one. I usually always keep 2 here. And a lot of times what I'll do is I will keep little pieces off of, for example, when I trim my binding, when I put my binding strips together, I'll go ahead and keep those little strips and use them as leaders. Okay, so what we've got here, I'm going to move you. I want you to see this really clearly. We're going to go up and we're going to move this over here. And how many times a day do I say to myself, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey? We're going to move this down here. Okay, so this is our joining strip on the back side. Now we've got our front joining strip attached on both sides of the block. So we are going to turn this over. I am going to take that out because I need that space. So I'm going to turn this over. Now what I like to do is I do like to press it from here. We're going to press this side over and then I'm going to hand stitch it. Can you machine stitch it? Yes, absolutely can. You can do it with fancy stitches. You can do it with any type of stitches you want. I just really enjoy hand stitching. So this is what it's going to look like from the back when I have my hand stitching done. You'll notice this is a finished edge because we folded it. There is our front edge, and that's going to bring everything together beautifully. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this back over to the iron. I'm going to press this down real good, and I'm going to press this flange, which is finished on the edge, over. And then I'll meet you back here and show you how I like to hand stitch this down. So hang on a minute and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. A couple things I want to show you. One, if you can see it, this is my needle. I use a size 11, which most people say you've got to be crazy. That's how big it is. It is a very, very small needle. I did that when I was a girl. My mother used to make me use a smaller needle because when I was making clothing, I wouldn't leave such large gaps on my hems. So I got used to it. I like it, and that's the needle I use. I use a little leather, just a leather sticky on my finger for a thimble. I have never been able to find a thimble that I've liked, and I have tried them all. I have a collection of them here. None of them are usable for me. I run my thread through beeswax, and there's also thread conditioner out there. There's a lot of other things. The beeswax, what that will do is it will make your thread just a little stronger, and it will help prevent it from knotting up as you use it. The other thing I like to do is to keep my thread about 18 inches in length when I'm doing hand stitching, because by that time the friction of the thread going through the fabric has pretty much worn off all of the beeswax and made the thread just a little bit less sturdy. Thread degrades by heat. Friction causes heat, and friction is what's produced when we put our needle and our thread through our fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one nice hefty stitch here to get started. And I like to do a blind hem. This is the way I was taught to do it. I know that there's more than one way to do it, but it is the way I was taught, so it's the way I have continued to do it. I put my needle through that fold, and I just go down a little bit, maybe 3/8 of an inch. I like to try and keep it more at 1/4 of an inch. Take a bite off of my fabric and my binding strip. And if you do this correctly, the thread is almost never going to show. What I suggest, thread color, you find a thread color that's closest to the binding strip. Okay, because when it goes into the block, as you can see, it gets drawn up here, and it really does not show. Let me show you again how I'm going to take that bite. I want to get up nice and close here so you can see it. And I give it a little tug, keep it nice and snug in there. Then I'm going to try and go in very close to that hole where my thread comes up. I'm going to take a small section and I'm going to go down in the bottom again and back up. Again, I'm going to put my needle through that joining strip into the fold there, and we're going to come back up. I'll do that a couple more times. I'm sure you've got it by now. This is what you don't want to do. You don't want it to come all the way through. You just want it to go in between those two layers of fabric. Okay, and I got a little bit of a knot. No worries. I'm not going to pull on it. If you pull on it, what you end up doing is just tightening that knot and breaking your thread. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to use my needle or my hand or whatever works well for what I need to do. And I'm going to try and work that knot out. And it looks like a mess, but it looks like we've got it here. There we go. So I've got it out and I can continue. Take your time with this process. It's a lot of fun. This is something you can do while you're watching TV. You can do it with your puppy on your lap. I've done it many nights with my dog on my lap. And I just bought stock in lint rollers. That seems to work. So once you get this all stitched down, you'll go ahead, you'll put your binding on, and you will have yourself a very pretty, quite modern table runner. So let's open it up here. We'll take a good look at it. See if I can get you up high enough to see the whole thing. And there it is. So I hope that you've enjoyed watching this process as much as I have enjoyed bringing it to you. And I hope you'll try it. Please leave me a comment. Let me know how I did on this project for you. And don't forget, if you have a question, leave it in the comments on the class page. I will be more than happy to answer it. You can always find my email address under the instructor page as well. So enjoy this, and until we meet again, let's quilt.